All right, what is good, YouTube? I'm here to show off one of my favorite archetypes of the new format. I know, especially my teammate Ethan has been very high on this, and he won a regional last year, so when he talks about stuff, I tend to listen. So, this is definitely not an optimal 60, and I have another tab open here to show you how I would change this list. The Crustal I thought was just kind of a meme. I wanted to see if it was maybe applicable in a tournament setting to have something useful. And then a couple of the cards in here ended up not being as useful as I originally thought. So this is just kind of what I was working with for this video today for locals. And if you're unfamiliar with the Festival Lead archetype, it's going to work something like this. So you have the Diplin here. Diplin's going to have an ability called Festival Lead. And what that is going to do is it is going to allow us to attack twice if we have the Festival Grounds in play. And Festival Grounds is not a very useful card. It just gets rid of any special conditions, which could be annoying, but all of our guys have very low amounts of HP, so usually if they're being affected by a special condition, it's pretty inconsequential overall to our game plan. And so then going forward, this guy is only going to be doing 100 damage, but because we do have the ability to attack twice, we can do 200. So modifiers such as Kieran, Maxbell, and Brave Bangle are going to allow us to essentially do double damage. So instead of Maxwell doing an extra 50 damage, it's actually going to help us do an extra 100 damage. So that's very cool. And then our other attacker is going to be Sea King. So Sea King has an attack that says it could do 60 damage and then draw 2 cards. But if we have that Festival Grounds in play, it's the same thing. It allows us to attack 2 times, and therefore we do 120 damage and we get to draw 4 cards, which is pretty useful. Being able to just draw 4 cards while doing 120 damage is nice, especially if you play against decks that don't have a lot of HP. You can potentially take 2 KOs while drawing 4 cards. And kind of the main reason this deck is allowed to be as good as it is we have the Thwacky with the Boom Boom Groove ability. So Boom Boom Groove says that if you have a Pokemon with the Festival Lead ability in the active spot, you can switch your deck for any cards. It's very reminiscent of a Pidgeot EX. So the reason this deck can play a lot of one-of supporters or two-ofs is that you can just tutor them pretty much whenever you want. And yeah, it's an incredible ability, and you have 3 Pokemon with the Festival Lead ability, and Goldeen, Sea King, and the Diplin. So this Rillaboom is also a cool inclusion for the drum beating attack, which is during your next turn. Your opponent's attacks from the defending Pokemon cost 1 more, and their retreat cost is also 1 more. So you can randomly get traps, but it's mainly a cornerstone answer. But I found it to also be pretty good against something like Grimmsnarl. If they put a bunch of damage on one of your Thwackies, you can evolve it into Rillaboom, and then it just has a lot more HP, being 180 to 100. And then also, if you're able to attach an energy to Rillaboom or Thwacky at any point in the game, you can also just threaten 180 damage attack, which isn't bad because it's able to KO stuff like Meowth, and then you're also able to KO stuff like Alakazam, other one-prizers that maybe if you run out of attackers, it's not that bad. And then we have the Shaman to protect our guys. I'll be honest, I thought the Crustle was going to be a little bit better than it was, but it didn't end up really doing anything. I don't think I ever put it into play once, so definitely going to cut this card. And for some of the cool supporters, I mean, Brock Scouting was actually surprisingly good all day. I think that this card, I think, is better than Dawn, which is interesting to see a lot of the lists have switched over to Dawn while not playing a stage 2. So I think Brock might be a little bit better to find 2 Pokemon under the item lock. And so then we have Kieran. So Kieran's especially good in this deck because 1, it can act as a switch card while also doing 30 more damage in other scenarios. So right, if you have your Diplin, you can do 100 damage, and then Kieran's going to boost it by 30. So then now you're doing 260 damage instead of 200. So it's going to be able to KO most basic EXs in the game, I think, aside from Mewtwo. And then we have some more like standard one prizer package stuff like Lana's Aid to be able to recover, Judge to be able to hand disrupt, and then Fennel. So Fennel is definitely getting cut. This card's terrible. Never used it once. Even in testing games against Dragapult, it's kind of hard to get to because usually they're getting your Grookies off the board anyway. Sacred Ash is also a little bit underwhelming, so I'm going to show you the list that I probably would play going forward. And so this is a little bit more of a straightforward list. And let's see, we have the additional copy of the Rabska to be able to help in the Dragapult matchups. Definitely more consistent than Fennel. And then just like the 4/4/4 of all of the consistency cards are going to stay. I have seen lists with 2 Goldeen, I think Goldine's a little bit underwhelming. I think the part where Goldeen would be good is because it is a basic with Festival Lead as an ability. So I have seen some lists cut a bug catching set for the second Goldeen. I think either is fine. I'm probably going to end up trying both as I play games on the ladder. But yeah, this is just a very consistent version of the deck. Having the 2 air balloons also very nice, just to be able to have consistent retreats. If you have to retreat into a Goldeen, or your opponent tries to trap your Shaman or Rabsky, you don't have a lot of energy in this deck. You essentially have the 5 and then the 2 off the stretcher, and then potentially the 1 for the Lana's Aid. You can get back like 2 or 3 energy. If you're gone through 3 energy with your Lana's Aid, more than likely your Lana's Aid is going to have to get you some basics back anyway, or some just Pokemon in general. So yeah, but I think this deck is very good, and it's a very good spot right now. You have a lot of matchups that are just really good into the top tier decks. Something like Grimmsnarl is a really good match because it's a dark type. Something like Zoroark because it's a dark type. If you have random Mega Sharpedos, which look cool, you know, just any Mega deck, this deck will generally have a good time into. Especially like the Terra box, like slot box stuff. You're able to like KO Clefairy without any modifiers. You're able to KO like Water Pond with 1 modifier, Grass Pond with 1 modifier. If you have Max Belt, you're able to KO Kangaskhan with the Diplin. So yeah, you just have a lot of really good matchups. And then with the double bench protection, it's really hard for your opponent to be able to KO your bench guys. But we're going to get into the games of locals, so I'll be back in a second. All right, as we get into this first game here, I'm going to be playing against a Mega Lucario deck. So this matchup should be favored for Festival Lead as long as you're able to set up and get going. The nice thing is that Lucario has a bunch of HP, but even if you have to use 2 Diplins to be able to trade into Lucario, you're going to be trading favorably. And then if you have a modifier, if you have double modifier, you're actually able to KO. I know a lot of lists have been including the black belt in order to one-shot the Lucario, but I don't know. Just having the double Kieran is nice. I could see going to 1-in-1 copy. And you see there, I get the bug catching set to be able to get the Rillaboom and the Thwacky out of the deck. I'm going to get the double Grookey here also with the Buddy Buddy Poffin. And then I have the Brock Scouting to get double Applin. So very solid starting hand. And let's see, I have energy and max belt, but I think I choose to forego attaching it just yet in case my opponent has a boss's order. I don't want them to boss's order my Applin that has the attached grass energy. So the Pokebed by my opponent here. I fully expect this to be like a Makuhita or potentially a second Riolu grab. I think that if your Riolu is not in a spot where it could get KO'd, I think you're more than likely wanting to get a Makuhita here. Keeping those Grookies off the board is pretty important. And Lucario is kind of one of those decks that can do it because you have so many gusting options. And we see the Night Stretcher to get back the fighting energy. And I thought that my opponent was just going to be able to take the KO with the Soul Rock here. Especially because they didn't have the guaranteed Lucario in hand. I probably would have liked to see the Soul Rock attack. It is a little bit scary using the Soul Rock because if I KO the Soul Rock because of weakness, you then have to use your... You have to like bring up something else as a sack. You have to like use a body, which doesn't feel very good. So I understand the reasoning in going into Lucario or like fishing for it. And there's the Mega Signal, which is an interesting inclusion in the Lucario deck. It seems a little bit worse than just like an Ultra Ball, but there's nothing really wrong with it. And then we see a second Mega Signal. I'm going to be able to get a Lucario for the following turn to be able to evolve that copy of Riolu on the bench that was just put down. So we got a tall order here, considering that we have to KO a 340 HP Lucario. But like I said, it's fine having to go 2 for 1 into the Lucario, just because you're getting a 3 prize knockout, which is pretty insane. So yeah, the Applin's going to go down, and then there's going to be an energy attachment to Riolu. So I'm just going to promote Applin, and I get the bug catching set off the top there. I get to evolve my Grookey and my Diplin and attach an energy. And I believe I attached the Max Belt here. I feel like there's not really a reason not to. But yeah, we'll go with the bug catching set first, see if there's anything we're able to grab. And I'm going to get an Applin and a Dwebble. And Dwebble is not very good in this matchup because you have the Soul Rock, and Soul Rock's going to be able to trade into you pretty favorably. I was thinking about benching it, but I was like, well, I have a Lily in my hand. I should be fine. So I attach the Max Belt and I go for the Lily. Playing the Max Belt here may be a misplay because I can potentially use it later in the game to one-shot a Lucario with a combination of Kieran. But then I thought about it and I was like, well, I think just getting the damage here is fine because then I can use my first attack on the second Diplin to be able to KO Lucario because he'll have 40 HP left. this play really only gets punished by a Wally's, and there's the Festival Ground. So now I have the, oh, and my battery on my thing is going off, but it's fine. But now I can use Boom Boom Groove, incredibly strong. This is the board state that you get to that is just insanely strong, where now I can just start, cycling all my guys. I got the Boom Boom Groove for the Boom Boom Groove. Boom Boom Groove grabs Pokepad. Pokepad is going to grab a copy of Thwacky. And now I'm going to be able to hit for 150 and then Festival Ground attack again for another 150. It's going to be 300 damage going on to Lucario for a 1 prize attacker, which is pretty nasty. So there is the possibility next turn that I take a 4 prize turn, which is pretty crazy, right? Especially because Lucario has no way of taking multiple KOs. Then it's going to be very tough for them to keep up in the prize trade once you're able to stabilize and set up a board like this. Like, this board is basically unbreakable with no, like, ability lock in the game, with no, like, way to really stop me from just kind of doing the loop. It reminds me a lot of, like, the 1 prize Malamar deck, where your engine is just kind of this little guy sitting on the bench, like, getting your other guys ready, and then you just have, like, this revolving doors of 1 prize attackers. But obviously Boom Boom Groove is a lot more consistent than Psychic Recharge. So, yep, we'll see the Makuhita get benched there and be able to gust some of my guys up. And then, yep, we see the KO here from Lucario. And yeah, the loop just begins. I just get my Dipplin back. And here I'm just going to be able to want to find another copy of Dipplin or Applin. So I'm looking at my discard pile, eyeing it up. I could potentially go for the Lana's Aid to be able to recover. But I go for the Night Stretcher for the Applin, and I'm going to put it upside down so that I know I can't evolve it. And then I'm pretty sure here I just play a Lily. I'm perfectly fine with just taking this KO and refilling my hand, so I can potentially get a big combo turn next turn. Something like a Brave Bengal plus a Kieran. So I'm going to draw my 6 cards. Or actually, I'm going to draw 8 cards because I haven't taken a prize card yet because this Lucario has still not been KO'd. So it looks like I drew a buddy, or what is that? A pad there. So I can pad and grab a copy of Dipplin. I actually think that's a small misplay. I should have probably used it for a Thwacky. And then I could have used that Thwacky ability to search the Dipplin. But I guess it ends up being the same thing because I can just use this Thwacky to search another Thwacky. And then I can use Thwacky to search pretty much whatever I want. So I'm pretty sure here I'm just going to be eyeing up like the one-shot combo or maybe like a boss's order. So I'm going to just search whatever 2 cards I want and just be able to get my hand ready for the following turn. And then, yeah, we're just going to take the KO here. So I'm going to go for Festival Lead to take the KO. And then I'm going to take 3 prizes, and then I'm waiting for my opponent to promote their next Pokemon. So they have to promote something that's just going to die, which is really unfortunate because if they bring up Lucario, they basically just lose the game. And then, yeah, me being able to KO one of their 1 prizers gets rid of that Soul Rock and Lunatone combination to be able to allow them to draw. But now if my opponent just has another copy of Lunatone, which it's right there, it's pretty probable for them to have another one, they can just kind of do it again. I did it again. I think in this matchup it's really weird because if you like use Lucario to power up a Makuhita, then it just gets one shot by the Applin, which is pretty unfortunate. And they're KOing another Applin here with the Soul Rock, which is fine because now I can just win the game if I have a boss's order. So I'm going to bench Shaman. I'm going to attach the Brave Bengal, and then I'm going to boss's order up the Meowth, and then I'm just going to double attack it for game. I think my opponent maybe kind of got a little bit short-sighted there where they thought they had to search the boss order off the Meowth, and so they played it, but they had a boss in the hand. But, I mean, either way, I was just going to have to... I was going to double attack into Lucario. He kills my Dipplin, and the next Dipplin comes up. Even if it retreats to Lucario in the following turn, it's still going to get KO'd. The only way he survives an additional turn is if he has the Wally's Compassion, like I said earlier. But then there's maybe a... Like, if he does go, like, retreat Wally's Compassion, I just KO the active, and then he goes to 1 prize card, and then I just boss a 1 prizer for game. So I think either way, I still had the game pretty much locked up there. So we'll go into round 2. All right, going into round 2, my opponent goes bench Roselia, attach to Gible, and then pass. Unfortunately, I have no way of KOing this Gible turn 1. But, again, this is also just a pretty good matchup. I think I open a pretty slow hand, so... I used the Buddy Poffin to go for Goldeen, so that if my opponent does KO his Grookey, I will have something with Festival Lead in the activation ability, and then I can use the Grookey in my hand, or the the Thwackey in my hand to evolve my Grookey, and then off of that, I can just kind of get my deck going. So the scariest thing with the Festival League deck is if you don't open very well, you can definitely not stabilize. So looking at my hand, it looks like I opened that one copy of Fennel, which is pretty bad. So yeah, Fennel, that card just sucks. I think it was like considered as a Dragapult tech, but I don't think it ends up being very good. I think you just want to prevent the damage counters from going on your board anyway with like something like the Rabska. So there we see the Champion's Call. Champion's Call is going to grab another copy of the Gibble just to be able to build that board up. But looks like for me, I get a little bit lucky here, and my opponent is not going to have the boss's order to kill my Goldeen. And I got a Buddy Poff in top deck here, which is pretty solid to be able to search my deck for an Applin. I go for the Grookey, and Night Stretcher for a Grookey, and then I'm going to go for the Boom Boom Groove, and this is going to grab a Lily's Determination. And then I play Festival Grounds, and here I'm looking for a Sea King. I do have to get a little bit lucky here. I mean, I have 5 copies of Sea King in my deck with the Pokepad. And let's see, I get a Diplin, I get a Bug Catching set. I don't think I get the copy of Sea King, but I do get an Applin off of the Bug Catching set. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to sack another 1 prizer to my opponent. But this is fine because I stabilize, so that's really what matters. And the neat thing about this matchup is Garchomp is weak to grass. So you don't really need a lot of modifiers to be able to KO, even through the, what's it called? Even through the tool, if you have Kieran Brave Bengal, you KO. I have seen some people play, like I know Julius's list from Prague this weekend played a Secret Box, which could be cool. I think it might be a little bit difficult in this deck to find discard outlets, or discard early in the game, but I mean, he did get, you know, top 32 or top 16 at the regional, so maybe there's a little bit of work to do to see if that card is a good inclusion. Also seen Prime Catcher, which is pretty cool because it's also an anti-retreat card. So you can kind of reposition yourself into a Festival League Pokemon, which is cool. Having a Gust is also just a nice. So we see the big board kind of evolve here. We see the Garchomp hit the board. And then the bad thing about this matchup is because you do have the grass weakness and the Gabite only does have 100 HP. You can't wall behind Gabites like you would do in like the Crustle matchup where you would just never evolve into Garchomp. You kind of just have to hope that one of your Garchomps just lives a hit so you're able to kind of come back in the prize trade. And we see a Stone Energy attached to the active, and I think that's a mistake for my opponent. I think he doesn't realize that I can still KO the Garchomp. So we go for the Bug Catching set. I'm going to get another copy of Grookey. So now I've kind of gotten to that ideal board of like the triple Applin, triple Grookey. I'm going to bench Grookey here. And I think I'm going to just go for the Brock Scouting. Brock Scouting is going to grab me another copy of the Thwackey. And now I can use both these Boom Boom Grooves to just be able to search whatever card I want. So yeah, I'm going to go for this copy of Grass Energy and Max Belt more than likely, because I already used my supporter for the turn on the Brock Scouting. And so I'm thinking, okay, I was like, well, so if I attach a Max Belt, I'm hitting for 150, which is 300 damage. I think I could have actually just used the Brave Bengal here and saved the Max Belt if my opponent has a potential... Or actually, I don't even need it, right? Because I hit for 200 and then 200 is just 400. So I actually don't even need a modifier, which is disgusting. So I do need the modifier if my opponent has the tool right. No, because they go to 400 exactly. So yeah, being able to KO through tool with no modifiers is absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, it just shows the power of being able to attack 2 times. So I mean, the game is basically just going to come down to, am I able to get to the Diplin, which... With a copy of Diplin in the active, a copy of Diplin on the bench, and then double Grookey, it's like basically impossible for my opponent to like break this lock, especially with the Garchomp deck, because even if they get Judge here, I promote Diplin, and then I go Grookey for Diplin, Grookey for Grass Energy, and as long as I have an out to 1 basic Pokemon in my hand, my opponent gets KO'd. So, I mean, even if I get Judged and I draw the Grass or the Diplin or the Night Stretcher, then I just have the whole combo to go again. And if not, like, I Thwackey for Lily, and then I draw 6, and then I can use a potential Thwackey again. Or because my opponent put 3 of those cards in my discard pile by attacking into it, I can just then use the Thwackey to get a Lanazade, to get all 3 back, and then, you know, I go Evolve, Bench, Attach Grass, and then it's like the whole thing over and over again. So going to draw 2 cards here. And like I said, it doesn't really matter because I have 2 Grookeys, or 2 Thwackies, so I can pretty much just search whatever I want. There's a Night Stretcher for another copy of Gibble. I don't know if you need that next copy of Gibble here, just because now your active is... Oh, I guess if you're not going to evolve, benching another Gibble is fine. Alright, so go for Pokeball here. It's going to grab me a Thwackey for Boom Boom Groove. And then, let's see, what do I want to grab here? I could see this being like a Lily's just to refill the hand. Yep, and I attach Grass Energy, and then I Lily just to be able to get a big hand back going again. And then I still have the double Grookey to work with. And then I evolve the Dipplin there, and then I'm going to go for a Bug Catching set to grab Shaman. Pretty useless card here. I'm just going to start using cards to thin out my deck. So I think I'm going to grab Buddy Puff in here, and then I can grab something to maybe recover. So I'm going to go for a Night Stretcher there to be able to get back to Applin. And then I'm just going to use the last Boom Boom Groove to just set up for the following turn. And yeah, this board state is like pretty much unbreakable. So yeah, I'm just going to smack. And then yeah, the Roserade is actually going to live with 30 HP left. So this is still a pretty tough board for my opponent to get through, because they can use the Roserades to kind of jump block one time. But after that, they're pretty much going to go down 2. But the nice thing is all my guys have such low HP that if my opponent does evolve into Garchomp, it's fine. So I think here they're fine evolving into a Garchomp. It buys them an extra turn, so they retreat, knock out, go to 1 prize card, and then I knock, or go to 2 prize cards, then I knock out, go to 1 prize card. But I'm pretty sure at this point of the game, like, the board is unbreakable. So I think the game is just kind of over from here. I mean, if my opponent doesn't have retreat, then there's nothing really for them to do. See a Petrol, but it's going to have to be for like Switch or Air Balloons just to be able to get this guy out of the active. We see a Force of Vitality come down, which not the biggest fan of here. I think if you don't take a prize card, the game is just pretty much over. And we see a pass there from my opponent, so I'm just going to go attach to an Applin, and then I'm just going to set up my board so that I'm able to just guaranteed have the win next turn. Getting the free turn is pretty insane. I think I prized my final Dipplin there, or maybe to my discard pile. Yep, I did. So I'm going to use a Lana's Aid to be able to get those 2 guys back. And then, yeah, I'm just going to evolve, and then the Grass Energy goes to my hand. And then, like, the game is basically just over here. I'm able to KO Roserade, and then he has to give me something else. And then I smack into this Garchomp for 200. And then, yeah, there's just nothing to do here. If he KOs my active, I have Dipplin, triple Grookey, and there's no way for my opponent to Gust and also disrupt my hand. So the chances of me having something that doesn't get me out of the active is so low, so insanely low, right? There's the Balloon, the Kieran, the Air Balloon, just Grass Energy. Thankfully, Pokemon was nice when they printed the Thwackey and they only gave him 1 retreat cost, because if he had 2, there's definitely a couple of more lines that you could do in a festival lead. So that is very nice. So I just tried to tell my opponent, I was like, listen, man, I have boss, you played a supporter, I think it's cooked, and I think the game is just kind of over from here. So we'll see if my opponent concedes in the next, yeah, they probably concede in the next like 15 and 20 seconds, but we see a Night Stretcher here. Yeah, and unfortunately there's just really nothing to be able to do here, even if my opponent retreats into this other Garchomp and then KOs my active Dipplin. I just need 1 basic in my 40 card hand. Yep, I'm just going to go bench, max belt, and then search Kieran because it's funny, and then just hit him for 20 billion damage. And yeah, the game. All right, and let's get it going into round 3. And I had to pause my recording because I had to go get some water, because yapping about Pokemon this long dries you out. What are they selling? But anyway, so I hit Ceruledge. This is the guy that cooked me in the finals last time. So, you know, I had to get my revenge with my big ol' apple deck. And it definitely helped me that my opponent, one, led a 2-prizer and then had to put down their other 2-prizers. So, yeah, Ultra Ball from Meowth for Carmine is like squawk at home. But there's still a pretty solid setup going here into my opponent's first turn. I know here that I'm pretty much going to have to stack 1 or 2 prizes to my opponent because they do have the Solrock and the Ceruledge. The nice thing is in my deck, I do have that copy of Goldeen to evolve into the Sea King. So it's going to allow me to one-shot KO the Ceruledge, which is very nice. And then because I'm able to one-shot the Ceruledge and draw 4 cards, it's going to allow me to draw into my combos a lot faster. So looking at my opening hand, looks like I have maybe a Pal Pad, or not Pal Pad, a Pokepad. I get the Goldeen off the top, actually, which is pretty insane. There's the Bug Catching set, aka Battle VIP Pass. Be able to search my deck for double Grookey, and the Brock Scouting in the opening hand, too, to get double Applin down. And then I do bench the Goldeen there, because I think the upside is my opponent has, like, retreat into the Soul Rock and then boss KO it. Like, it's fine. But then, again, if my opponent just, like, uses Soul Rock to KO, then I can just bring up Goldeen and kill whatever. So I can even use the Goldeen to kill the Soul Rock. But my opponent is going to have Boss's Order up my Goldeen, attach Fire Energy, and then Ultra Ball for Ceruledge. So, pretty unfortunate, because now that means I'm going to have to use my Apple to just smack into the Ceruledge. So, if I'm able to combo together, like, Max Belt, Stadium, Evolution, Energy, it's, like, not very likely, but let's see. It looks like I do have Attach plus Grookey plus the copy of Lily's Determination to be able to refill my hand to 8 cards. I get the Stadium here, but it looks like I don't have an out to a Pokemon, which is pretty unfortunate off of those 8 cards. So I think I'm going to have to use my Boom Boom Groove to just set up another Pokemon. So yeah, I'm going to use the Boom Boom Groove to get another Boom Boom Groove, and this is probably just going to have to get either Night Stretcher to be able to get back my little guy, which I think is more than likely what it's going to be. Yep, I'm going to use Boom Boom Groove for Night Stretcher. Yeah, because if I had any out to Pokemon there, I actually am going to KO the Ceruledge, which is pretty unfortunate that I whiff any out to a Pokemon, because, right, I would still have, like, the 3... Oh, why is my bar not going away? I still have my 3 copies of the, like, Buddy Poffin, plus copies of Pokepad, and then the other 2 copies of the Bug Catching set. Yeah, that one. So, you know, my opponent's just reading my card. They're like, why does this thing attack twice? It's pretty good. So, yeah, the chance of my opponent having another bosses here is pretty low, so I feel pretty good about my Goldeen benching here. But then also I'm able to use my Goldeen to KO this Ceruledge, and then my opponent has to bring up another Pokemon, then I can do some more damage to that guy as well. But I think it's actually probably smarter if I do have a Diplin in hand to just go into another Diplin. So then that way I'm able to preserve the Goldeen for when I need to one-shot a Ceruledge. But yeah, here I'm going to... I think here I have to promote the Goldeen, so I have something with Festival Lead in the active. Yep, and I draw for turn. I top deck the Sea King, which is pretty insane, but I don't think it's super consequential to like what my current hand is, because I do have the double Thwackey. So I play the Lily's Determination. I'm going to refill my hand and get to 8 cards, and then I get to use double Thwackey, which is pretty funny. And then after the Thwackey usage, I get... after the Thwackey usage, I get to use this Goldeen to attack 2 times, which then allows me to draw a bunch of cards. So I say, I need energy here. So I flip double energy off of that Bug Catching set. I'm going to attach to Sea King, and then I'm going to use my Thwackey, search Pokepad, grab a copy of Applin, and then I'm going to use my other Thwackey to either set up for the following turn or just, yeah, it looks like I'm going to use it as a setup. And then, yeah, I'm going to KO with the Sea King. And then whatever he brings up, I'm going to hit it for 60. I'm going to take 2 prize cards, and then I'm going to draw 4 cards. So I end the turn with like a 15-card hand. So yeah, my opponent's already used their Meowth. So if they want to hand disrupt me, it's going to have to be with like just the raw Judge in the hand, which is not a likely inclusion in the Ceruledge deck. So pretty solid, because right here my opponent's going to take a knock and go to 3. As long as I can avoid the Briar turn, I can just win the game. So that's what I'm hoping for here. You see the Lunatone go off. Boom, draw 1, 2, 3. And then we'll see if my opponent maybe has like a boss's order or two to attack with the... Yep, it looks like they do have the boss's order up on my Diplin. But then this just kind of allows me to KO the Sea King, because the nice thing is Diplin has 80 HP, so without something like a Premium Power Pro, the Soul Rock is not going to be able to KO me. But yeah, now I can just bring up Sea King. I'm going to attach Max Belt because it's funny. And then, yeah, I can just kind of set up my board going forward here. So I'm going to look at how many guys are in my discard pile. And I'm going to play that copy of Sacred Ash, it seems, from my deck. So yep, Sacred Ash is going to come out. I'm going to shuffle back all 4 of the little guys. And then I'm going to use my Thwackey to search another Thwackey. Use Pokepad to get a Diplin. And then I just have, like, so many cards in my hand. I can just kind of keep the train moving. So yeah, I'm going to use the Bug Catching set, look at the top 7, and it's funny, it's actually going to grab me Dwebble and Crustle, which, you know, never make an appearance through this tournament run. So yeah, I just got the board set up here, and same thing. I'm going to be able to use the Sea King. It's a 60 plus 50, which is 110, which doubles to 220. So I'm going to be able to KO this Ceruledge here. And yeah, I just need the one modifier. So bang, draw two more, take two more prize cards. So I end this turn with like a 20 card hand. And even if my opponent has the Briar here, they're only taking two prize cards. And then on my next turn, as long as I have a boss's order, I win the game by KOing a Meowth or a Pheasantipity. So this game is very cooked for my opponent. The best chance they have here is like evolving into Ceruledge and then judging me, and then hoping that I don't have game somehow through two Grookey. But yeah, my opponent's like, yeah, I have no hand disruption, I have no Ceruledge, so then the game is just cooked. And yeah, we go on to the finals. All right, and we're going to go into the finals here, and I'm playing against Team Rocket. So usually at our locals, we're pretty lenient as far as like proxies go. As long as you have something that can represent what you have, it's like fine. That's why my opponent's got the Sneasel in their deck, and it's supposed to be a Rocket Sneasel. I told him I'd bring him one next time at locals. He's a teenager, so you know what I mean? He probably doesn't have access to like a debit card or credit card to be able to order stuff off TCG players. So I was like, I got you next time, bro. So yeah, I'm gonna go for the bug catching set, and then I have double Buddy Poffin, so I get a pretty absurdly good opening here just to be able to, you know, get double Grookey, double Applin, and then yeah, attach Brave Bengal, and yeah, just pass it over to my opponent. And even if my opponent does have the KO onto my Goldeen, it's fine. Because as long as I'm able to get a good setup, then I should be able to have a KO back. See the KO onto the Goldeen. And then, yeah, I'm going to go Evolve. Festival Ground Lily's Determination. Like, bro, this deck is so silly. Like, what deck can really just compete with that unless you're a Dragapult, right? Even if you're a Dragapult player, like turn 2, I played no items there. So I would just go KO Badoo, KO Dreepy, or like whatever you wanted to bring up. Maybe if it's like a Monkey Dory, right? So yep, there is another copy of the Buddy Poffin to be able to get. Just fill up my bench. I get to the ideal board state of the triple apple, triple monkey, and yeah, I can just start using my Thwackies to thin cards out of my deck. And then yeah, I just double smack into the Spider and take the KO. And so the tough thing about the Rockets deck is that they're not going to be able to attack with the Spider 6 times. At best, you can maybe get 5. So at some point, you're going to be forced to either attack with your Mewtwo, or you're going to be forced to attack with just something that isn't Spider. And Mimikyu is useless in this match because I don't play any Terra Pokemon. And Articuno, you're unable to attack with it without playing something like a Water Energy, which is in like 0.0% of these lists. So, see the Night Stretcher here. So it's going to be a Night Stretcher used early for the Spider. So this makes it so that you're able to attack with even less Spiders, potentially, because it's going to be harder to find like just the raw Spider. Looks like you actually just do double Night Stretcher. So you'll be able to take the KO here. He gets a secret box off of that, which is pretty solid. And yeah, here I'm just going to be able to just keep my board moving. I'm able to lose Determination for a brand new hand of 6 cards. And then I have triple Thwacky down, so I'll be able to just kind of set up my board however I want. There's the bug catching set. I showed my opponent, I was like, bro, I drew a triple bug catching set. Like, I'm just going to rip through this deck. So another bug catching set's going to be used. And I'll be able to get a grass there, which is fine. So then I can use one of my Thwackies on something different. And then third bug catching set is just going to grab me a Dipplin and a grass energy, which is pretty nice. Because now I'll be able to attach to a Dipplin from the hand. And then I can just use these 3 Grookies to just search whatever 3 cards I want. And yeah, just take the KO there. My opponent's got 2 Pokemon in play. Only one of them are a Spider. So there is the Night Stretcher. And I think my opponent forgot to draw for turn there, actually. Yeah, so I think they realized it. Yeah, they're just going to draw a card for turn. And then use Night Stretcher for the Spider. And then attach a Team Rocket's energy. And then attach a Grass energy. And then here's an interesting play that I'm not really agreeing with. My opponent uses the Secret Box there to discard 3 Pokemon, which I think the benching the Mimikyu is fine just because it gives you a pivot. But also you just need Pokemon in play to be able to attack. So you see the Rockets Factory, the Rockets Archer, and then, yeah, just Brave Bengal will be able to throw that away. And then as an item, maybe we'll see something like my opponent's also playing something like a Sacred Ash. We can see that here. And we actually see another copy of Night Stretcher come down. So my opponent's playing 3 copies of Night Stretcher. That's interesting. Okay, so we see the Mewtwo come down. We see the Rockets Factory. We see the Night Stretcher for another Spider. And then we see the Team Rockets Archer probably is going to come down next. Yep, it's going to reset my hand, reset my opponent's hand. But kind of at this point, it doesn't really matter because I have the Applin on the bench. I have the triple Thwacky. So we draw 3 cards. Looks like I get like Dwebble, Grass, plus something. Did I draw Dwebble Crustle again? That's hilarious. So it's going to be the KO here from the Spidiops. And then boom, be able to draw 2 off the factory as well, putting my opponent back up to those 7 cards. And then, yep, KO with the Spider. So here, I'm going to get the energy attachment, and then I can start Boom Boom Groove. So I Boom Groove. It looks like I'm eyeing up the Lana's Aid here. The first one's going to grab the Festival Ground so that I'm able to attack 2 times. And it looks like, let's see, the second one looks like maybe I'm either eyeing up Lana's Aid or the, yep, so I guess the second one is Lana's Aid. And then the third one, what did I get there? It's probably just another copy of Diplin. Oh, it was the Max Spell. Yeah, so I get Kieran plus Max Spell because I'm thinking my opponent is more than likely going to have to attack with this Mewtwo coming up here soon. So my opponent has to make a decision here, right? Either they are able to attack with the Spider again and KO my Applin and go to 1 prize. But then if I KO the Spider, it's going to be impossible for my opponent to find an attacker for the following turn. So then that's a turn I can use Triple Boom Boom Groove to be able to KO the Mewtwo on the bench. All right. And then, yeah, my opponent attaches the Rocket's energy to the Spider. And then, yep, we see a Transceiver. This is either going to be for another copy of Archer or another copy of Ariana. So it's an interesting pick here. We go for another Archer. So my opponent's going to be hoping to get a Spider off of this Archer to be able to take that KO. See if my opponent has any other cards that they can use to just kind of waste out of their hand. Yep, there's a copy of Archer. So Archer's going to just shuffle our hands back into our deck. So my setup that I did at the end of my last turn is going to be kind of nullified here, but it's kind of fine because I still do have the 3 copies of the Applin in play. And let's see, my opponent, off of 7 cards, looks like they whiffed the Spider, which is pretty bad. I think maybe if you're the opponent, because I'm at 3 prizes, it doesn't really matter. As long as you take 2 KOs back to back, you're pretty much fine with however it goes. So I think actually this turn you're supposed to play for the Mewtwo attack, right? Because if you promote Mewtwo, you get Spider, you attach the Rocket's energy to the Mewtwo, and then you evolve into Spider, use charging up, energy switch to the Mewtwo, take the KO, go to 1 prize. I'm at 3 prizes, so even if I double attack KO the Mewtwo on your following turn, because you already have Spider in play, all you need is 1 energy and 1 Pokemon to be able to win the game. And if you had the Rocket's Mimikyu, like I said earlier, there was actually an out to win the game. I'm not sure how many energy switch my opponent plays, but even if they play 1, it's like the best line to go for, I think, which gave them a higher percentage chance to win the game, I think, overall. But yeah, here I can just KO the Sneasel, and then if my opponent promotes the Tarantula, I KO it. Then they have to attach an energy and not have an attack. Or if they promote Mewtwo, then I just 2 KO the Mewtwo on the following turn with something like a boss's order, and the game is just pretty much over. So tough decision here, and then they promote the Mewtwo. I also agree it's definitely correct to just promote the Mewtwo here, because here they're going to need, like, I don't even know, like Archer plus something. And they bring up the Thwacky here, which is funny because I think I have I just show my opponent Air Balloon, Boss, Max Belt, and yeah, just boom, boom, Max Belt, boom, boom, and then KO. And then, yeah, I'm going to go to 4-0. I'm going to win locals. And I ended up winning locals there, and I'll show you what I got. This is the fun part. I'm going to start showing off what I got from locals. So this is what I got. You can't really see this, but this is a Noctowl. And I got another IR Noctowl because I bent one of mine in playtesting. So, yeah, don't recommend. So I got a 4th one to replace that. And I got a Meganium because I just don't own this card. And then I got 2 of the poster collection Lucarios, because these are super sick. So thanks to TGS for hosting, and yeah, I got some credit. And there's my deck down below with the pink sleeves, and yeah, really sick deck. I'm having a lot of fun playing this Festival League deck. So thank you guys for watching if you made it to the end here, and yeah, follow me on Twitter, follow me right there at DefCon TCG. Drop a like if you like this video, and drop me a sub too. Catch you later. Peace.